Present?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thereby, I welcome our chief guest, Dr. K. Narayanan, Life Member IEEE Dean for Research and Development, Cyberday Institute of Technology, Bangalore. Sir, the stage is yours.
Yeah. Thank you for a wonderful introduction. I hope my screen is visible to all.
Yes,
Yes,
sir. Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. So thank you, Professor Karthikeyan, for inviting me to your institution, PSNA College of Engineering. Thank you for a wonderful introduction by your masters and B student. I'm really honored to be a speaker at this forum. So there's been enough introduction given about me, so I won't go about details of the same. So today I'll be talking about introduction to machine and deep learning, which are the buzzwords today, and how it is going to impact us. So already my introduction has been given. So only thing I would like to mention is the latest achievement was I was inducted as a life member of IEEE HKN. So this is an IAC chapter. Only IAC has a chapter of IEEE HKN in India, and it is an international honor society which stands for scholarship, character, and attitude. So this is a lifelong designation of membership, unlike other IEEE membership, which you have to renew regularly. And it is given for the individuals who have distinguished themselves as students or professionals in electrical engineering, computer science engineering, or computer engineering. So it is given for that. So among the top scholars of IAC, I was selected. So I was really honored to be the life member of IEEE HKN. So straight away we'll go to machine learning. That is my topic of discussion today. So I'll be talking around 50 to 55 minutes, followed by question answer session for 5 to 10 minutes. So what is machine learning? So there are a lot of definitions which are available. So as of now, I'll be quoting two definitions. One from Tom Mitchell book 1959 and Arthur Samuel. So this subject has been there for a long time, but the application on, we are seeing from the last 3-4 years in particular. So a computer program is said to learn from experience E. E is a vector E with respect to some class of task T and performance measure P if its performance at task in T as measured by P improves with experience E. Now this definition is quite confusing, which is given by Tom Mitchell. So more simpler definition, all these are vector quantities E, T, P. So I'll go for a little more simpler definition. Machine learning is the field of study that gives the computer the ability to learn without being explicitly programmed. So this is a very important point and the starting point of our study on machine learning today. So it is a field of study that gives the computer the ability to learn without being explicitly programmed. Now this is a very important concept because we all started with C program. So way back when I joined for engineering in the year 2000, so C program was the buzzword, and those who knew C programming were used to get job in Infosys. That was the time the IT boom was there. Thanks to our former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh liberalization, we had this IT boom. And so this anybody who knew programming, that too in C or C++, used to get a very good IT job. So those who had distinction marks. Then we have Java, all those things which came later. So that time you used to program it. Now the machine learning, it will give the computer the ability to learn without being explicitly programmed. So this is a very important thing. So one of the applications of machine learning we see daily. All of you, I am sure, use Gmail accounts. All of you are having Gmail accounts. So you have emails which are the input to your machine learning algorithm. And this is going to segregate whether you are getting spam mails or regular mails, because there are a lot of ads and other things which are going on. Digital marketing has become another major way of marketing nowadays. And so your email will be segregated as spam email or regular email. So that is the basic thing which we are experiencing daily. And many times when you are enrolling for some course or anything, or you are buying something, they will tell you to check the spam email, because during the filtration process, although it is 99% efficient, some of your mails which are relevant and important, you may go to the spam email. Still the system is learning. So and if you see the spam mail folder, you will have a lot of emails in the spam folder, and you will be deleting them quite often, or it will be auto deleted after a month or so. So this is okay. Now if you want to translate the language Spanish in Spanish, so there's a one tool known as Mathematica, like your MATLAB. So this is known as the Wolfram Mathematica, like your MATLAB. This is another software where you have to program everything. So they also have inbuilt machine learning modules. So you can translate the language Spanish in Spanish, how it can be translated. So if you want to translate the word poetry in Spanish, so that also can be done. So this is just some simple examples I'm telling. Now I'm just telling you an example of image classification problem. Now you give an image like this to computer. Image identify, this is a dog. Everybody, our human brains can identify it is a dog. Now as a computer, it has to identify what it is. It is just a picture for a computer. Now with the advent of your machine learning, the computer will not only identify it is a dog, but also the breed of the dog, that is hound in this case. So you have so many breeds of the dog. So similarly, you have one image of a car here. So this is the input to my Mathematica program. Data is equal to image identify this one. This is the image which the computer program, your machine learning program has to identify. This is a car, and what is the probability of what kind of car it is? That is what it has to identify. Everybody knows it is a car. But whether it is a hatchback, station wagon, many of you may have the US as your dream destination to work and do your higher studies. And if you go to USA, you will get all kinds of cars. The amount of automobiles available in USA is not there in any part of the world. The amount of automobile per population of 10 people. So this can be identified as a convertible. So with 37% probability, is telling 0.337 here. So it is 37.75 times percentage. That is a convertible. A cruiser is 37% probability. A coupe is only 9.8% probability. Station wagon is another type of a model of a car, 7.6% probability. Limousine, you have a very big cars which are there in you find in USA where presidents and other peoples go. So station wagon, hatchback, cab, automobile. Automobile, it can say with 99.9% probability. So this image is definitely a car. It can either be a convertible or a cruiser. So that is what your machine learning is giving you the output. So now let us understand how this artificial intelligence, machine learning and deep learning, how are these terms interrelated? All these are interrelated terms, and you will be hearing them quite often, and most of you will have a kind of confusion how to distinguish between artificial intelligence, machine learning and deep learning. So it is very difficult to differentiate like India-Pakistan border, but there is some kind of differentiation. So all this comes under one term known as data science. Okay. So why data science is nowadays, especially after in 2020, after your 3G, 4G and 5G is coming, we are dealing with large amount of data. So you have now a BE in data science coming, masters in data science coming, and which are offered by premier institutions. Also under data science, you have subset known as artificial intelligence, as your head of the department, madam, mentioned. This has been there for quite some time. Under artificial intelligence, you have another subset that is known as the machine learning, which we are trying to learn today, at least some basics understanding of what is machine learning. And there is another subset of machine learning, which is known as the deep learning. So all this comes under what is known as a data science. So as you know, day in, day out, we are dealing with the data. we are dealing with megabytes, terabytes of data, and the amount of data which we are going to handle is going to only increase exponentially as the years go by. You have a lot of movies which you are watching on YouTube and other things, which was not possible some years back. So used to have some kind of hacking thing to download this kind of videos from torrent files and all those things that are no longer there. You have Netflix and all which are come up in a legal way. So you are having huge amount of data. So I'm just telling, from entertainment industry to scientific industry to finance industry, you have Aadhaar database. So you are having huge amount of data now having. So that you have to deal with this data. So how do we deal? You can either use artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, which are all subset of each other. So we'll just go through the definitions once again of these three fields of study. Artificial intelligence, it is concerned with the design of intelligence in an artificial device. The study of computation that it makes it possible to perceive, reason, and act. See, why artificial intelligence? Human beings have the ability to perceive, reason, and act. For example, you are going to a forest, a tiger comes in front of you. You are able to hear the sound of a tiger or a lion. As a human being, you know that sound is of tiger, not of a human being. So you can perceive it. Then you can reason it. Oh, it is a tiger, I am in danger, then I have to do some act. What act? You will either run away from the place or you do some action so that you can be hidden from the danger. So that is what makes a human being very unique. They have the ability to perceive, reason, and act. Okay, act in a reasonably and a logical way. So that is what makes our human beings very intelligent people. So we call ourselves very intelligent people. Homo sapiens is that is what human beings have come from. Machine learning is a field of study that gives the computer the ability to learn without being explicitly programmed. Already I told you, this has been told by author Samuel. Deep learning, artificial neural networks is at the core of the deep neural network. An artificial neural network with a deep stack of hidden layers is called deep neural network. So artificial neural networks usually will have one or two hidden layers, whereas a deep neural network will have a number of hidden layers. That is why it is called as deep neural network. So this is a multi-layer perceptron problem. So this is your basic example of your artificial neural network and a biological neural network. So you have an input layer and you have an output layer. In between you have the hidden layer. So this is your basics of your artificial neural networks, how they are designed. Then on your right hand side, you will find your biological neural network. This is from your human brains, how your nerves are interconnected from axons or other things. And this will give the ability for the brain to perceive, reason, and act. So this is the cell culture or a microscopic image of your human brain, how it will be. Like that, you have millions of neurons in your human brain, and most of us use not more than 3 to 4% of our human brains. And extraordinary genius such as your Albert Einstein or people who are having extraordinary IQ cannot use more than 9 to 10% of our human brain. If we were to use more than 20 or 30% of your human brain, we'll be better than any supercomputer that is available or manufactured by human beings on earth. So our aim should be to maximize our human brain and to make these kind of artificial brains like artificial neural networks and machine learning to make our lives more simpler and better for the human beings. So data science, it is an interdisciplinary field which uses scientific methods, processes, algorithms, systems for knowledge extraction and insight from both structured and unstructured data. So it is an interdisciplinary field which uses scientific methods, processes, algorithms, and systems for knowledge extraction and insights from both structured and unstructured data. So data is the primary element for all these areas. So you can either have structured data and unstructured data. You can have labeled data, you can have unlabeled data. So data science encompasses everything: structured data, unstructured data, labeled, unlabeled, all those things. So the data is a primary element for all these areas of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning. So when you are actually going diving into machine learning and deep learning, you should have good mathematical, logical interpretation and understanding of statistics and probability. It is very essential for you to have proper understanding, and if you want to really implement machine learning on a real-time basis. So statistics and probability become the core of your heart for understanding your machine learning. Statistics is a discipline that concerns with the collection, organization, analysis, and interpretation and presentation of data. Machine learning models are statistical and probabilistic model. Please remember, all the machine learning problems are based on previous data, which is fed as the learning model for that particular machine learning model. So that is the kind of, you want to learn, you are fed with the data, then it will create what is known as a probabilistic model and capture patterns in the data. So through the use of algorithms. So as we proceed, you will understand this better, because machine learning models, so please remember, this is a very important point. They are always statistical and probabilistic model. Okay, these models can need not be 100% probability. We can never give in our life. Okay, so we cannot tell with 100% that whether we will get third wave, no third wave or not. It is very uncertain. So these are all, we are working with probability. So when you are having a high probability of success, you go with it. If you are having a low probability of success, you don't go with it. So statistics and probability play a key role in designing implementation of machine learning algorithms. That is what I wish to tell here. So where all we find the applications of machine learning? In Google Maps. All of you, or most of you, or most of us would have used Google Maps. The best application is your Ola driver. So if you put, he will have his own maps to navigate with the least possible resistance or the traffic, especially if you are in major cities like Chennai and Bangalore. So Google Maps, it gives the fastest route to reach a particular designation, even in the event of high density traffic. We allow it to use our data like our present location, average traveling speed, daytime, and specific occasion. All such data is captured and stored by the application. By using this data, AI and machine learning algorithm make the right conclusion and give us the exact information. Image recognition. Can we unlock our smartphones by using looking at it? So if the answer is yes, we are using machine learning. So if we can unlock smartphones, see, there's a face recognition feature, some of your advanced smartphones. Otherwise, you have to key in the your code to unlock your smartphone. So by seeing your face, if it can unlock, then it is using machine learning. The high-end camera of your phone recognizes 80 nodal points on human face, and machine learning technologies to measure the variable of a person's face and unlock the phone. Other image recognitions uses the drone, self-driving cars, and military surveillance. All this uses machine learning. Video surveillance. This is the most advanced applications of artificial intelligence and machine learning. Machine learning tends to keep a better watch over objects compared to human minds. Video surveillance is used for different purposes like copper theft prevention, parking lots, in traffic monitoring. Also, you can use machine learning, shopping patterns, operation monitoring, abnormal event detection, facility protections. Then one more very important application which has come into limelight in the recent years, especially during the lockdown, is sentiment analysis using natural language processing, NLP, which is one of the advanced machine learning tools. Data miners automatically extract and conclude the opinion by analyzing both types of machine learning algorithms, supervised and unsupervised data. Companies are dealing with customers to use this model to improve the customer experience based on the feedback. Music applications like YouTube Music, Gaana.com suggest music based on user sentiments, like analyzing the histories of song you have played, favorite playlist, and even time of listing of music. So that is your sentiment analysis. Even in your Amazon, you are doing shopping, it is going to tell you now based on your shopping parameters, what all the items you have searched, it is likely to show you items which you are likely to purchase in the next time. That is based on your sentiment analysis. Benefits of sentiment analysis: effective brand and social media monitoring, the enhanced customer support, competitive analysis, better tracking of employee feedback. Just excuse me. Better tracking of employee feedback. Then your product recognition, as I already mentioned, Amazon, Flipkart, we use recommended items or options like users who have bought these products also bought. All these are outcomes of advanced machine learning training, wherein system learns individual patterns of users and suggests new or additional products to buy. Similar product suggestions on Google, YouTube, and premium apps. Online shopping using chatbots. All of you would have seen chatbots. These bots can recognize the type of questions and accordingly give you quick answers to resolve the query by extracting the right parameters. To give precise solution, these bots are also a technique called as a decision tree in machine learning. So chatbots you have used while interacting with even financial firms, like any mutual fund firms. Nowadays they have online chatbots. So whatever question you have about products, you just type it, it gives automated answers, and a chatbot is there to chat with you instead of a physical human being. So just to see how machine learning is taking over the all our technologies. So Google Translate. Google uses Google's neural machine translation that has the ability to observe thousands of languages, words, and dictionaries and transmit any sentence in the desired language. Online video streaming applications like Netflix, Amazon Prime, based on the trends of machine learning framework and applications, businesses are able to engage with their audience by providing quality streaming experience. What kind of data these apps monitor? So day and time of watching content, type of content, what you are watching, pause, rewind, fast forward activities, browsing pattern, trailers. Virtual professional assistants like Google Assistants, Alexa, you will be seeing the advertisements very regularly. That is your virtual assistant. Then social media, tagging a person on social group in the Facebook. So sometimes you take a group photo and you put it on the Facebook. So it will give you, when you want to tag, it is going to give you recommendations based on the Facebook photo of your friend or relative or whatever the case may be. Recent addition is stock market analysis. This I'll be just telling you with some examples. Algorithms like ARIMA and Prophet models come in handy for future price protection in stock market. So after the stock market crash in 2020, ever since the lockdown was announced in March 2020, you would have seen that the stock market, if anybody would have been following Indian stock market, has more than almost doubled. So many of the monies who are put in stock market, they have doubled. Instead of putting in banks where you will be getting 5% interest, you have got here 100%. So how that is done also I'll be discussing. Auto-driven cars. Some of the common applications of the algorithms used in autonomous driving cars are scale invariant feature transform, ADA boost, text-on boost, and uLook once. These are the some of the algorithms, and this is quite advanced one. Scale invariant feature transform. So all this will come in your self-driving cars. So Elon Musk has already set up a factory in near Bangalore. So you will have more of the self-driven autonomous driving cars and your electric cars, which is going to come in the future. So the kind of technology which you are going to see in the future is unimaginable. Okay. So dynamic pricing in the real time. So surge pricing seen in Ola and Uber. So AI and machine learning algorithms not only help in determining the surged prices, but they also help with solutions like best prices, discounted prices, and promotional prices. Okay, now coming to these are the applications. So one particular example of stock market I will just take and tell you to tell how machine learning can help. So just who are new to the stock market, this is some stock of IndusInd Bank. This is one of the banks which are listed company in Indian Stock Exchange. The green candle you can see is these are known as the candlestick patterns, which are used by the technical analyst. These kind of green candles tell that the stock has gone up on the particular day, and red candles will tell the stock has come down on a particular day. So any typical stock pattern will look like this kind of zigzag pattern. So how to implement, so whether now I am at this point, so how can I predict in next 3 months it is going to go up or down? So based on this data which we are having for the previous 1 year or 6 months, we are going to input these data to the ARIMA model or the Prophet model, and we have a lot of parameters like moving average. All these are statistics. Moving average, simple moving average, 50-day moving average, exponential moving average, relative strength index. So these are some of the statistical terms which we are using for predicting the stock future. So if this is the stock price presently, whether it is going to go up or down is what the interest of any retail investor would be. So if you are able to master machine learning, you can also able to predict the future stock prices, and you can make a hell lot of money with that instead of struggling. So this is another thing. This particular stock price is of one company known as Indian Energy Exchange. This is a very unique company because there's a lot of energy demand in India. So you have this particular company. Now can you see the stock price is continuously going up? Now I can predict that the stock price will continue to go up, but what will be the upper limit of this stock price, or in another 3 months how it can go up? Because here moving averages, everything will be keep on going up. So this is in a highly bullish state. Bullish state means the stock price goes up. So this also you have a data like this. You have a stock going a zigzag pattern. You have a stock going in only upward pattern. So these are the various kinds of things. So another stock, Maruti Suzuki. Most of us drive this car. So almost at every village. So here you can see this has a unique pattern. This goes up, comes down, goes up, comes down, goes up, comes down. Almost you can start predicting. So we can have a machine learning algorithm. So this is also nowadays termed as algo trading. So there are some kind of predefined software. So now what will that software will do? It will see this as a buying pattern here, and this will see this point as a selling pattern. So moment the price comes here, you will get some kind of trigger to buy Maruti Suzuki. Moment the price goes around 7,500 here, from 6,700 it goes to 7,500 within a week. So it will give you a sell trigger. So around 500, 600 rupees per share you can make. So again, machine learning with the given kind of data, you can feed the data, and machine learning will identify what is known as the buying zones and selling zones for Maruti Suzuki. So I'm just telling you the applications of machine learning for stock market analysis. So the various models that are available. So due to lack of time, I cannot go deep into it. Now I'll just touch upon the types of machine learning systems. All of you please keep the doubt at the end. So I'll be addressing your doubts at the end. So we can classify machine learning as supervised learning, unsupervised learning, semi-supervised learning, reinforced learning. So in case of supervised learning, unsupervised learning, semi-supervised learning, reinforced learning, the classification is based on the amount and type of supervision they get during training. In case of your batch learning and online learning, another criteria to classify your machine learning systems is whether or not the system can learn incrementally from a stream of continuous incoming data. Another criteria of classifying machine learning, that is your batch learning and online learning, to find out whether or not the system can learn incrementally from a stream of incoming data. Otherwise, we'll classify the machine learning as supervised, unsupervised, semi-supervised, reinforced. Also upon the whether it is a continuous in-streaming data, we can classify as batch learning or online learning. These are the very important classifications of machine learning. Then we also have what is known as instance-based learning and model-based learning. This classification of systems can be based on generalization of the examples from the training data. The system will be able to generalize from the examples it has never seen before. So even if the examples it has never seen before, your machine learning can predict the outcome. So that is your instance-based learning and model-based learning. This classification can be based on generalization of examples from the training data. The system will be able to generalize from the examples it has never seen before. First, we'll go to supervised learning, one of the most simplest form of machine learning algorithms what we have. The training data that we feed to the algorithm includes the desired solution called the labels. Supervised learning tasks are basically classification problem. The supervised learnings are usually classification problems of machine learning. Some of the regression algorithms can be used for classification, such as logistic regression, commonly used for classification. Supervised learning algorithms, most of the common ones are k-nearest neighbor, linear regression model, logistic regression, support vector machine, decision tree, and random forest neural networks. This is the supervised learning algorithm. Unsupervised learning, the system tries to learn without a teacher. The training data is unlabeled. So this is an unlabeled training data. Usually in unsupervised learning, unlike a supervised learning, there is no labeled training data. Most of them are unlabeled training data set. And the system tries to learn without a teacher. So many times in our engineering, you have learned without a teacher, because sometimes we won't get some teacher for some kind of courses. So it is like learning without a teacher. Okay. So in unsupervised learning, you have algorithms such as clustering, k-means, hierarchical cluster analysis, expectation maximization. So these are the algorithms of unsupervised learning. Once again, I'll repeat: k-means, hierarchical cluster analysis, and expectation maximization. So see, for each of these kind of features, so I am doing some kind of classification here. This one thing I'm grouping together, this one thing I'm grouping together. So this is clustering, which I am doing hierarchical cluster analysis, and this has been taken from a book known as Aurélien Guérin, who has been is a very great scientist in machine learning. Visualization and dimensionality reduction. This is one of the important concepts which we have to understand in your unsupervised learning. Algorithms preserve the structure, data organization is understood, and the pattern identification can be done. Simplify the data without losing too much information. Feature extraction. Merge several correlated features to one, and anomaly detection. Remove the outliners from the data set before feeding to the learning algorithm. See, dimensionality reduction means, the best example I can give you is your Hot Wheels cars, your Hot Wheels toy car, which is exactly, it will have all the features of your actual car, but it is reduced in dimension of almost 100 times for a small kid to play. But it has the features of all the features. The material, the metal used is all from a real car, but that is the dimensionality reduction. Without losing the information, you should be able to do the dimensionality reduction. And also you have what is known as anomaly detection. So if there are any anomalies in the data, that has to be removed. So visualization and dimensionality reduction. So you have input which have a complex and unlabeled data in case of unsupervised learning. Please remember, once again, I am repeating, for unsupervised learning, we are dealing with unlabeled data, complex and unlabeled data. Whereas for your supervised learning, we are dealing mostly with labeled data, and supervised learning is mostly a classification problem. So in unsupervised learning, we have input is the complex and unlabeled data. Output is a 2D or 3D representation of the data which can be plotted. So for which we can use principal component analysis, PCA, kernel PCA, locally linear embedding, LLE, T-distributed stochastic neighbor embedding, TSNE. So these are all very advanced algorithms which we use for your unsupervised learning. And we have certain rule-based learning known as the associated rule learning for unsupervised learning. So websites such as like Amazon, Flipkart uses this algorithms for recommendation of several set of items from a very large database. So your Amazon uses a priori algorithm. So a priori is finding the frequent items set in the database for a Boolean association rule. It uses prior knowledge of frequent item set properties, imitates breadth first search algorithm. So this a priori algorithm imitates breadth first search algorithms of a graph horizontal search algorithm. This is an horizontal search algorithm. So as I told you, in Amazon, you are buying, suppose you are buying a dress. So next time when you go to Amazon, it is going to show you more and more similar dresses. Suppose you are buying a smartphone in Amazon. So what it is going to tell you before you check out or you finish your buying your smartphone, it is going to tell you accidental protection cover for your phone. It is going to tell you the various accessories which are available for your phone from another third-party sources. It will also tell you some kind of screen guard which you have to put for your phone. So all these kind of extra accessories which is going to prompt you to buy Amazon when you are buying a smartphone. Suppose you are buying some OnePlus, which is a very famous high-end smartphone brand. So it is going to tell you to protect your this one, you need a very good cover, you need a military grade protection. It will tell you to buy accidental protection. So if your screen breaks, it is going to be replaced. All these things your Amazon is going to prompt you. Same thing with Flipkart. So all this those things uses this a priori algorithms, which is an horizontal search algorithms and which is based on breadth first search algorithms. Then you also have ECLAT, equivalence class clustering, and bottom-up lattice traversal, more efficient and scalable version of a priori algorithm. So this ECLAT, equivalence class clustering and bottom-up lattice traversal, is a more efficient and scalable version of a priori algorithm. Imitates depth first search. So here he integrates breadth first search algorithm, that is a horizontal search, whereas your ECLAT, which is more efficient, imitates depth first search algorithms, DFS algorithm of a graph. It is more faster than a priori because it has a vertical search approach, whereas your a priori algorithm or DFS approach has a horizontal search approach. Then you have what is known as a reinforced learning. So we have understood what is a little bit about supervised learning, unsupervised learning. Unsupervised learning, you have a lot of unlabeled data and more complex. Reinforced learning, the learning system is called an agent which observes the environment, selects and performs action and gets rewards or penalties. It learns by itself through policy to get the most reward over time. Policy defines what action the agent should choose in a given situation, like DeepMind's AlphaGo. Another criteria to classify the machine learning system is whether or not the system can learn incrementally from a stream of incoming data, which I mentioned. Batch learning, the system can learn incrementally. It requires a lot of time and computing resources. It is usually done offline. So batch learning means the learning it cannot learn incrementally. It must be trained using all the available data. Since it requires a lot of time and computing resources, it is done offline. So what we do is we train the data set, put it in the system, works. So first the system is trained, then it is launched into production and runs without learning anymore. It just uses what it has learned. Batch learning systems are adaptable to change. This is done by data updating and training a new version from scratch as often as needed. So batch learning, you train something, put it into production, so it goes without learning anymore. It just uses what it has learned. If you have to update, you have to take that algorithm offline, again train it, learn it, again put it into production. That is your batch learning. So in case of online learning, exact opposite of your batch learning, the system is trained incrementally by feeding data instances sequentially, either individual or by small groups called mini batches. Learning step is fast and cheap. System learns about a new data on the fly. It is great for a system that requires data as a continuous flow and need to adapt to changes autonomously. Required limited computing resources since it does not need them once the system has learned the new data instances. That is your online learning. So the system is turned incrementally by feeding data instances So it learns with a continuous, the system receives continuous flow of data and is learning on the go. It can be used for this to train systems on huge data sets which cannot fit in one machine's main memory. The algorithm loads a part of the data, runs a training step on that data, repeats the process until it has run on all the data. So it is quite slow. It has to run on a particular data set. If your data set is very huge, the algorithm loads a part of the data, runs a training step on that data, and repeats the process until it has run for all of the data. Learning rate. Learning rate parameter is a very important parameter while designing this kind of online machine learning algorithm systems. It is an important parameter which says how fast the system can adapt to changing data. High learning parameter. The system will rapidly adapt to the new data, but also tends to forget the old data. When you are having a very high learning rate parameter, so what happens is you will end up learning new concept, but you may forget the old data or the old concept. Low learning rate. The system will learn slowly, but will also be less sensitive to noise in the new data or the outliners. So if your learning rate is too slow, it will learn slowly but steadily, but it will be very less sensitive to noise or in the new data or the outliners or the non-representative data points. Challenges with online learning is that if bad data is fed to the system performance will gradually decline. So if one of the disadvantages of online learning is if bad data is fed to the system performance will gradually decline. The bad data from a malfunction sensor or a robot. So in that case, the system will decline. So many of these machine learning algorithms are also introduced in nowadays modern aircrafts like Airbus A320, Boeing 777, which they can almost fly automatically without any pilot input. But if a bad data is fed to the system, it can lead to catastrophic accidents. Okay, there have been various examples of system failing and pilots have to intervene to avert a tragedy. In this case, the system has to be monitored closely and promptly switch off the learning when there is a drop in the performance. Revert the system to the previous working state, monitor the input data and react to the abnormal data. So the anomaly detection should be part of your online learning, and you have to revert the system to its original state or reset the system. Main challenges which we face in the machine learning is we have what is known as your insufficient quantity of training data. So most of the challenges when we face is actual implementation of machine learning is insufficient quantity of training data. So the lot of data is required for most of the ML algorithms for proper working. So for simple problems, thousands of examples are required for the system to be trained. For complex problems like images and speech recognition, millions of examples are required unless we are reusing the parts of the existing model. So getting a lot of data and representative data is very important for actual implementation of any machine learning algorithm. For generalization, training data should be a representative of the new cases we want to generalize to whether we use the instance-based learning or model-based learning. So it should be, if it is a non-representative data, that's also a problem. If you have insufficient data, that is also a problem. So when using a non-representative training data, the training model is unlikely to make accurate predictions. So another thing is sampling bias. If the sample size is too small, then we have sampling noise. Very large samples can be non-representative if the sampling method is flawed. So the sampling bias, I'll give you a very general example which all of us will be familiar with. Before the election result, you have this exit poll, opinion poll, all kinds of poll coming, which is going to predict the election results. Okay, and all of us know in certain states this doesn't work. Because if the sample size is too small, then we cannot extrapolate and predict what is going to be the seat of a particular party. If the sample size is non-representative, that is also a problem. So non-representative means, suppose if I want to do what is an opinion poll, no, election is over. Suppose you have election coming in another 2-3 years time. I want to do an opinion poll in the state of Tamil Nadu. then what I will do is I will only do sampling in Chennai and Madurai and all cities and leaving all the districts and taluk. That is a non-representative database. Sampling bias. If I do very small sample from each place, that is also non-representative. And especially in certain states, it is very difficult to predict the actual number of seats because the data is insufficient. So I won't go further into it. I just wanted to tell the example. Then poor quality of data. So training data is full of errors, outliners, and noise. The system is very likely to perform well since it is hard to detect the underlying patterns. Data needs to be cleaned. So if the training data is full of errors, outliners, and noise, then the data needs to be cleaned. Explanation. In some instances, are missing a few features, decide whether the attribute to be ignored altogether, ignore instances. Filling missing values or train one model with the feature of another model will not work. So if some instance, if you have some missing data, don't try to input your own data, so that leads to more error. So irrelevant features. System will be capable of learning if the training data contains enough relevant features and not many irrelevant ones. A good set of features are required to train the machine learning project a success. The process of feature engineering has feature selection, feature extraction. Overfitting of the training data. Model performs well on training data but does not generalize well. So overfitting and underfitting is one of the problems. Complex models such as deep neural networks can detect subtle patterns in the data, but if the training set is noisy or if it is too small, then the model is likely to detect patterns in the noise itself. So instead of pattern recognition from the data, if the data set is too noisy, it will have pattern recognition in the noise itself. These patterns will not generalize to the new instances. Regularization, constraining a model to make it simpler and reduce the risk of overfitting. So when overfitting happens, when the model is too complex relative to the amount and noisiness of the training data. So overfitting happens when the model is too complex relative to the amount of training data. Simplify the model with fewer parameters, gather more training data, and fix data errors and remove outliners. That is the way of overcoming the overfitting problem. Hyperparameterization is nothing but a learning rate parameter. So learning is too fast also problem. You forget the old things. If the learning is too slow, also problem. So amount of regularization applied during learning is controlled by hyperparameter. It is a parameter of a learning algorithm, usually set prior to training, and it remains constant during the training. Tuning hyperparameterization is an important part of building a successful machine learning system. If the hyperparameter is set very large value, flat model less likely to find a good solution. Underfitting. It is exact opposite of overfitting. Opposite to overfitting, the model is too simple to learn the underlying structure of the data. Predictions are bound to be inaccurate. Sorry. So main options to fix the problems are split the data into training data and tested data. Generalization error. Error rate on the new cases. Evaluate the model on the test set. Estimate this error unseen. Then you have what is known as a training error and generalization error. The model is overfitting the training data. Okay. So I'll quickly touch upon deep neural networks before ending my talk. So artificial neural networks are at the core of deep neural networks. They are versatile, powerful, and scalable, making them ideal to tackle large, highly complex machine learning tasks such as classifying billions of images like Google Images. So deep neural networks are used to tackle large, highly complex machine learning tasks such as classifying billions of images, powering speech recognition services like Apple Siri, recommending the best videos to watch to hundreds and millions of users every day, YouTube, learning to beat the world champion at a game of Go by examining the millions of past games and then playing the against itself. That is DeepMind's AlphaGo. That is one of the game which DeepMind's AlphaGo they have done. So this is your hidden layer, this is your input layer and output layer. This is your simple neural networks. In deep neural networks, you have you have number of such hidden layers. This is your biological neuron. Already I have touched upon this. I won't be going into this. You have an axon, you have a cell body, nucleus. I'll be going into biology if I go into this. So this is how your cell will look if you cut your human brain. So here you have artificial neural networks performing simple logical computation and or not operations by your ANN models. Neurons, these are connections like your neurons. So this is your neuron. This is also your neuron. So this is your interconnection of your neuron like axon. So what is the difference between ANN and DNN? Normal neural networks will have a maximum 1 or 2 hidden layers, whereas deep neural network is that they have a lot more hidden layers, and this is usually done usually very large. Traditional artificial neural network architecture is referred as in the diagrams previously: deep neural networks, convolutional neural networks, recurrent neural networks, and long short memory. They are the types of neural networks. Here, deep neural networks work best on GPU based architecture and take far lesser time to train than on traditional CPUs. Although recent improvements have vastly decreased the training times in case of deep neural networks. Some of the DNN architectures, deep neural networks, it is an artificial neural networks with multiple hidden layers. Then you have deep belief network. Generative graphical models which has connection between layers but not between the units from each other. Deep reinforced learning. So these are the different deep neural network architectures. Machine learning combined with reinforced learning. Recurrent neural networks, a class of artificial neural networks which exhibit temporal dynamic behavior. They have connection between nodes like a directed graph along a temporal sequence. They can work on sequence of arbitrary length rather than on fixed sized inputs. Convolutional neural networks are CNN, a class of artificial neural networks commonly applied to visualize imagery. So all your image problems, you use CNN, convolutional neural networks. So how do you implement this machine learning, deep learning? You should have basic understanding of programming languages, preferably Python or Julia. Get familiar with the Julia Notebook, Google Colab, which is very easy to use, Jupyter Notebook, MATLAB, Wolfram Mathematica, Kaggle also you can use. It is a great place to learn machine learning. Glance few mathematical topics such as statistics like quartile, standard deviation, mean mode, function, probability. Python is one of the most popular languages because of its extensive libraries used in machine learning. Julia is a dynamically programming language that is flexible, fast, scalable, easy to use, and supports the high-speed mathematical computation. It also supports hardware that includes CPU and GPUs. Nowadays, it has become popular in machine learning and deep learning applications, which include computer vision and natural language processing, NLP. So Python is the choice of programming, and we have a lot of packages. First one is NumPy, which is a fundamental packaging for scientific computation in Python. Open source package developed by and maintained by GitHub, deals with array mathematical functions such as Fourier transform, random number generation, and linear algebra. So in this NumPy package, you can easily use in Google Colab. Then you have scikit-learn, machine learning library built on NumPy and MATLAB, Matplotlib. It is open source and commonly usable. TensorFlow, open source library for machine learning, usually focused on training interface of deep neural networks. Easier model building, trained models can be deployed anywhere, cloud, browser, or device. Keras, this is an interface for TensorFlow library. It is a Python interface for artificial neural networks. And then you have plotting functions such as Seaborn and Matplotlib. It is a numerical extension of NumPy or Matplotlib. So best ways to use in order to learn machine learning, make use of forums like Geek Forums, GitHub. Whichever machine learning project is to be executed, follow the instructions, explore the data preparation, try out multiple models, shortlist best one, and fine-tuning the hyperparameter. Hyperparameter, your learning rate parameter, is very important to prevent overfitting and underfitting. Automating the max to the maximum. extent. So before ending, I'll just give you some inputs. I have research collaboration. I'm very fortunate to have research collaboration with National Institute of Technology, Silchar, and Lab to Market and Indian Institute of Science startup. So this the MOU of I have the understanding with the National Institute of Technology, Silchar, with Dr. Kaushik Guha. So we work on joint research proposals, product development, practical applications using machine learning is our latest research field. Then also we have I have taken an active role in industrial tie-up with Lab to Market Innovations Private Limited. This is an IAC startup from the former professor IAC. So this is Professor S.K. Sinha from myself. So our institution had a tie-up with Lab to Market Innovation, where the students are trained on various aspects of cyber signaling. Also, it is going to be on machine learning. So these students are being paid for the internships. So in case students or any researchers are interested to learn more on machine learning and interested in industry internships, so I would like to just medium and small scale enterprises of Government of India. This is one of the startup in which I am also involved, along with me my colleague Dr. Arjun Shetty, who is a postdoctoral research fellow. So nowadays, as per the innovation policy of Government of India, so all the faculty members are encouraged to have their own startups. So if you go for IIT Madras, each faculty have their own startup companies, because there's a lot of gap between academia and industry. In order to bridge the gap between academia and industry, such startup work as a kind of training center for the students to train, so that they are industry ready and industry can straight away employ them. You may be aware that many of the students who pass out from the engineering are not employable straight away by the industry, and many of them lose out in the job opportunities because they are not industry trained. So in order to bridge this gap, this OpenFin Innovation Lab was one of our dreams, to have a bridge between academia and industry, so that the people can be trained on latest topic of machine learning with some very hands-on training sessions, and having some live data sets. We want to train people so that they are easily be employable by the industry with very good salary package, and they will have an edge over others when coming for the interview. So these are our group mates in OpenFin Innovation Lab, which is a startup firm. Myself, Dr. Arjun Shetty, he is MTech from IIIT, PhD from IISc, postdoctoral researcher in Institute of Quantum Computing. He specializes on quantum computing and is a postdoctoral researcher and a chief research consultant. Divya Shri, who has helped me in preparing this slide, is a certified machine learning engineer from IIT Roorkee and chief instructor and managing partner at OpenFin Innovation Lab. This is the certification which we have got for OpenFin Innovation Lab from Government of India under Ministry of Micro and Small and Medium Scale Medium Enterprises, MSME. So this is the MSME registration certificate of OpenFin Innovation Lab. So we are not some runaway firm, or we are not simply some training firm which will take money and give you some kind of certification. Here real training happens to the industry standard to train you to take up the challenges of the world, especially in the area of machine learning. And we are registered GST and GST firm. So we have a registered, our logo is registered, and we are now offering online internship on machine learning and introduction to quantum computing, as AICTE mandates industrial internship to be taken by all the students. So this is the vision and mission of OpenFin Innovation Labs. So we are here to train you for the future, towards sustainable career growth for future technocrats and entrepreneurs. So I'll be very happy if some of the students can also become entrepreneurs, because the business in India is thriving. So why don't you become entrepreneurs? So as part of this internship, this is 45 days to 2 months, totally online live sessions will be conducted on the basics of, we'll be covering introduction to Python programming, NumPy, Panda, all these Tensor, whatever I have mentioned. All these hands-on sessions will be covered. The price is 3,000 rupees plus 18% GST will be done on this. This GST goes to government for the country's growth. It is not taken by us. So these 3,000 rupees is required for paying the experts who will be taking classes for you. So students will be able to demonstrate key concept through projects and will be have a key edge over other successful partners. So the resource person will be myself. I'll be taking few sessions, Dr. Arjun Shetty, and most of the sessions will be taken by Mrs. Divya Shri, who is a certified AI and deep learning engineer from IIT Roorkee. So if you are interested, you can write to us for this kind of internship. Contact at openfen.org. You can make note of it. contact@OPPEN. This OpenFen name has come from two scientists known as Oppenheimer, and Oppenheimer is one of the very great scientists in the area of quantum. So and Richard Feynman is one of the greatest physicists we ever had. So these two scientists' name we have combined because it is we want to develop as a scientific research industrial organization going forward. So this is just not some kind of institute where you can do some work and run away. We really train you so that you are having good command over your machine learning. And in future, we have development plans of going into quantum, and quantum has tremendous scope. Now we are talking about machine learning. 5 years down the line, we'll be talking about quantum. So please write to us at contact@openfen.org. So this is the WhatsApp number. You can call. We have a landline number also. You can visit the website www.openfeninnovationlabs.com. So if you are interested in the internship, please contact us. It is 45 days to 2 months. It will be a live online internship. So this is specifically for the engineering students who would like to take industrial internship and would like to have edge over others while attending interviews. So people from CSE, ECE domain are welcome to apply. So the program details will be delivered in online mode only. The schedule will be shared, and these are the various social media links of OpenFen Innovation Labs. With this, I will end the talk. If you have any questions, you can ask me. This is my email and my WhatsApp number for communication. Thank you very much for your patient listen.
Thank you so much, sir. People here can ask you queries now. You can ask directly or you can type in the chat box. I can read it for you.
Hi, sir.
Yes, tell me.
Sir, in image processing technique of machine learning, which language could you prefer to get a fast result, sir? Fast execution, better accuracy.
Please repeat your question. See, image processing. Right now, you have what you are using, MATLAB.
Yes, sir. Yeah, sir. In language wise, Python, sir.
Yes. So see, image processing, you have what you want to do with image processing. Usually you will have only classification problem in image processing. So if it is a simple classification problem, you can use supervised machine learning algorithms in Python language. And if you are going for more complex analysis, see, image processing itself is quite thing. If you are taking satellite images, okay, if you are taking satellite images, suppose you have been employed by DRDO, you are taking satellite images and to find out whether Pakistan has got some nuclear arsenal or not. So that is quite a complex problem. Then you have to use deep neural networks. ISRO scientists day in day out work on this only. So they have get lot of these kind of satellite images, interstellar images. So these kind of very complex kind of images where you get billions of images, billions terabits of data. So that time you have to use deep neural network. Otherwise, a simple classification problem of image processing, a linear regression model will be more than sufficient, and you can You have standard libraries in Python and NumPy, which you can call. You have standard programs on GitHub, which are available, which you can ready-madely use that. So that is quite simple.
Okay, sir. Sir, if in a case of detecting a vehicle which moves in a high speed, how can we detect more accurately? If we detecting a license plate, how can we detect more accurately for finding the license plate numbers?
Pardon? Repeat your question.
For example, sir, if we detecting the cars to find the license plate number which is moving in high speed, how can we found in fast and in better accuracy, sir?
So no. This is a different problem altogether. See, if you want to detect the fast-moving cars, you should have a very good camera to capture it. So your image capturing is very good. That no need to have machine learning. With naked eyes, you can find out. So that is a different problem altogether. All you need is to have a very sophisticated camera, high-speed camera to capture the images.
Dr. Narayan, I guess I can take up this question. If that is the condition, like you want to tag the license plates or you want to identify the numbers in the license plate, then it is better you go with the reinforcement learning. That is the standard algorithm. And with that, you can blend in your devices like using Raspberry Pi and all. That will help you with the better detection.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Any other queries?
Dr. Narayan?
Yes, sir. Tell me.
Sir, I'm having one question. You told about the innovation, the startup by the faculty members. IIT Madras, they are doing the various startups. Okay. So, as a faculty member, if we want to start our own startup, so what are all the groundworks to be done?
Yes,
like how we can initiate the process? Could you please highlight this?
Yes. Yeah, now all of you, I think most of you faculty members would have heard what is known as a NIRF ranking, National Institution Ranking Framework. So this NIRF ranking is based upon the publication data of the faculty, the research publications, the quality of publications. I can actually give another presentation on NIRF ranking. Then the quality of students you are having and the kind of mix of students you are having. There are so many parameters like your NBA, National Board of Accreditation. They also go into your teaching learning process and other things. So they have a third party source to find out the data and give you a ranking. That is known as a National Institution Ranking Framework, NIRF. Apart from that, you have ATAL ranking for innovation, and this one there is some ARIA rankings. That is what we call. That is a new ranking concepts which is only based on innovations, startups, patents. So more of industrial lineage should be there in order to get that kind of ranking. Many institutions are not aware of it. So what is happening now is there was a discussion among the vice chancellors, which I am knowing. So there's a lot of gap between industry and academia. Many of the students who are passing out from the engineering colleges are not getting employed. So that is why if faculty were to have a startup of their own, these students can be employed in the startup as a trainee, as a whatever you have, then go to the industry. So it will have like a stepping stone, because even for medical MBBS student, they have 1 year what is known as a house surgeoncy before they can really practice. So like that in engineering, we don't have. From BE directly you go to industry. There is no intermediate path there. So in order to overcome this, these kind of startups have been encouraged. So how to go about it? This, you should have something known as the Institute Innovation Cell. Institute Innovation Cell has to be constituted. That is also a mandate as per the NAC. So after the Institute Innovation Cell has been constituted, from the Institute Innovation Cell, you can apply for startups. So under startups, you can apply under various category. The easiest one is partnership firm. Then you have limited liability partnership. Then you have private limited company. So partnership firm is easiest. Then you have to go for GST registration. So that becomes an entity. So who are the members of the startup? Whether the funding has come from the institute or not, then only it will be considered for the ARIA rankings. In case of IIT Madras system, what I am telling is, many faculties have their startups on their own, not through the institution. Okay, so this is the model which IIT and IISc has been following from years together. See, when I joined IISc, my chairperson of the department, Dr. Rudra Pratap, already had a startup company. So the PhD students who are passing out were employed as a research scientist in that startup. Professor Rudra Pratap. So he was the first person to introduce me on this startup. So IISc faculty are already having on startup. There is no restriction on such faculties to have startup by the institution. In fact, they encourage that same. So if that kind of ecosystem is generated where the institution and the faculty are in one page, so this will really work as a win-win situation for the student, for the faculty, for the institution, for the industry. It's a win-win-win-win-win situation. Because in institutions like IIT and IISc, there is no people will not leave the institution. In fact, in the history of Indian Institute of Science, only 3 people have resigned. In the history of Indian Institute of Science of more than 100 years, only 3 faculty members have resigned for a better opportunity in the history of 100 years. So that is not the case with the general normal institution. So if you have such a stable framework, then all faculty would like to contribute to the industry also, because industry institute interaction is very much essential in order to have better placement and training opportunities for the students.
Sir, thank you, sir. Sir, in our college, we are having our institution innovation cell. So through that institution innovation cell, we have to apply to MHRD. Am I right regarding the startup?
No, not to MHRD. So you have to first register, and by if you are going for partnership firm, Tamil Nadu government will have a separate registrar of partnership firm. There you have to register through your innovation council. After you register that, then you have to register under GST of Government of India.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Sir, I am having another question to Ms. Divyasri. Shall I ask her? Divyasri?
Yes. She is also. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Ma'am, thank you very much for your active interaction in the chat box, because a lot of participants are asking queries. You are actively answering. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, sir. I'm also equally thankful for you all.
Yes, ma'am. I'm having one question, ma'am. Actually, maybe our professor, Dr. Maithili ma'am, asked the blending of AI with IoT.
Yes.
So my question also is related with that. Suppose if we are developing any application using machine learning, we are getting the data from IoT devices.
Correct.
So for that application, we are just assuming there is no data set is already available.
Okay.
But we have to generate our own data sets. This is the scenario.
Correct.
So for this scenario, how much time we have to run the application to get the data set? How much the duration to generate the data set?
Sir, the more the data, the better training will happen. Yes. So at least for a week's time, you better use the device and gather the data in your normal database. Only you can store it either in your drive or in your as a CSV file. So at least for a week's time, you see how much data you are gathering. The more the data, the better the training will happen.
Okay. Suppose
at least for a week's time, sir.
Suppose if it is like any real-time plant, you just consider any like a production plant or any manufacturing plant. For that real-time plant, the 1 week is sufficient to generate the data.
Like per day, how much data you are gathering?
Per day?
Per day.
Okay.
If it is running in thousands of data, like per day you are getting at least 5,000 entries you are having, then at least run it for a week's time. That will be some kind of an ideal data set so that your machine can start off with the training.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Don't limit it to 200 or 300 entries only. At least make it to be it in thousands. At least 20,000, 30,000 entries are required.
Okay. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Shyamala, there is a question in chat box.
Yeah, sir.
Yes.
So there is a question by
Shyamala, just a
Gautam.
minute. Shyamala, just a minute. Dr. Ramesh is having some question.
Yes, sir. So first of all, I thank you very much for giving a wonderful session from Dr. Narayanan K. And also thank to Dr. Santi ma'am and Professor R. Karthikeyan sir and their team for giving it's a technical as well as the informative session to us. Sir, I have two questions from my side. So already Star asked that related to the data set questions. I have a same thing in a different manner. So there are many machine learning algorithms still not till now. So if I given a data set, how can determine which algorithm to be used for that? So in my knowledge, so there are a lot of machine learning algorithm to be used purely depends on the types of data in a given data set. So apart from that, do you have any suggestion or idea to choosing for the algorithms based on the data sets?
So that is a good question. So to start with, what I would suggest is the supervised learning. You have linear regression model. So that is the simplest way to start with for any kind of machine learning you want to go, rather than going for more complex algorithms. Because as I told you, if you for simple things, if you complicate, then the outcome will not be proper. So for any kind of simple projects, any kind of linear regression, k nearest neighbor, so these kind of algorithms which are readily available for as a classification problem for supervised learning, so that will be easy to go. So the data set can be large or small, that is different, but it should be a representative data set. So that is what I'm telling. Now, suppose the application is little more specific. As I told you, stock market analysis, that is a little more specific application. For that, you need a more larger data set, about a 1 year data set. And for that also, we have ready-made models like ARIMA and Prophet. So these kind of models, we can easily program in Python language, in Google Colab, which is you can use. There it uses cloud as the server, so it doesn't use your computation space of your computer. So it is a free source right now available, so that can be used for running the programs.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your answering. So my second question is, we all know that the random forest and the gradient booster machine learning algorithms are available. Sometimes we have a confusion about about choosing this type of algorithms. So can you give me some difference between the random forest and the gradient boosting machine learning algorithm? So while we are approaching a different types of rules at the end or beginning, we are having it. So can you give me that difference between that random forest and the gradient boosting machine learning algorithm?
Yes, would you like to?
Yeah, I would like to take up this question.
Yes.
See, random forests are involved when you have a lot of decisions to be made.
Okay.
Whereas in gradient descent or ascent, all will come into picture when you are majorly dealing with the regression problem. So what it is you want to do with the data set means you have to first organize one problem statement, what is to be done. Because decision making is more different than what is going to be next. That kind of prediction is different from what you are classifying. So depending on that, you have to take a call on that. And the second thing is it depends on the number of data sets you are having. Means for small and complex or medium data sets, support vector machine will do both your regression problem is addressed there, and even your classification problem is also addressed. Same thing happens with the regression also. Logistic regression can do your regression problem as well as classification problem. But it handles more larger data sets in much more efficient manner. So when these kind of things happen, you just decide whether you want to do solely the decision making or the prediction. If it is solely decision making involved, please do ensemble methods. Means you run one data set parallel with the decision tree, one with the random forest, one with the SVM, and one with the other kind of classification problem you run, and ensemble all that whatever prediction it made, and it will give you a better accuracy and score also. Like combining, like making a hybrid model of all decision making things.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your answering that question. So my final question is regarding the internship. Already Sir has mentioned and giving a lot of contact, etc., details. I have a a little bit doubt in that. So what about the time scheduling for doing an internship, ma'am? Actually, so I guess it may be a 45 hours with a 2 months duration. So do you have any time slot or maybe a batches or going, ma'am?
No, sir. Actually, we are starting from this 23rd of October. I have left it to the students only, because each and every state and each and every college are working in a different manner. So according to their convenience, we will finalize on that what timings do they want and what are the days they want to be involved. Based on that, our 45 days to 2 months promise will be fulfilled.
But you are going to decide it may be a 1 hour or 2 hour in post.
Yes.
It may be something.
At least 1.5 hours has to be.
Yes, it will be either 2 hours.
Yeah. 1.5 to 2 hours is required, but on what day and all, it is left to the discretion of the students, since each and every state are working on a different timelines here.
Okay, ma'am. So my suggestion and request is, ma'am, the most of the colleges are doing in regular manner. It may be 9 to 4 o'clock. So it may be in after evening hours. It may be 4 o'clock. After the 4 o'clock, it will be useful for us, ma'am.
Yeah, that is fine. Yeah, even we are with that only.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
So in fact, even I am attending one of the very advanced course on quantum from Indian Institute of Science in online mode. That class is also in the evening in the weekdays. So many of these classes are scheduled in the evening to cater for the international audience and also for the working professionals.
Yes, sir. That's why I am requesting, sir. Thank you for your answering all the questions.
So it won't be in the working times of the college. It will be after working hours or during the holidays. Whatever.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.